Hello everybody, welcome back to the Amazon European Masters final game of this second day of groups, and it's Viper and Jamada coming back at you for our final matchup. AGO Rogue up against LDLC. Last time I was in the LEC studio, not trying to brag or anything, watched these two teams go up against each other, very similar rosters as well, and LDLC came out 3-0 winners in that matchup, but best of ones, anything can happen.
Absolutely anything can happen, and I think a team like AGO Rogue as well, you know, we saw some very creative drafts come out of them. You know, the Ivan Rengar. I wonder if LDLC will play any respect to that in this draft, just to kind of remove away the potential of that kind of cheese coming out in a best of one, because they did pull out that Rengar Ivan in a very important match as well, outside of just the semi-finals. So we'll see, however, whatever we get here, because I expect that, you know, LDLC, like normal, right? We kind of harped on it yesterday as well. There's no Calming Court to stop them anymore. There is no, you know, big bad main villain anymore to prevent them from finishing first in every, you know, event that they participate in. They've only finished second once to Calming Corp in spring. Other than that, they topped the group. They came first in everything they played at, and I expect that they are looking to uphold that standard in the group stages. AGO Rogue, though, paying a whole bunch of respect to Exakick and DOS, 3 bottom lane bans. On the opposite side, LDLC, honestly doing the same thing. Yumi kind of expected on that side. Don't tell me they're going to do it. I doubt they will. I think just a hover,
It's a hover.
But LDLC are moving away the Poppy. Loads of things still open, right? Wukong, Renekton, Sejuani. The list just goes on for all the strong top side matchups that you can go towards, and Renekton will be the first pick here. So kind of potentially dissuades that Sejuani being locked in, but if LDLC want to play through the top side, they can just kind of end up with a Sejuani Wukong rotation at some point in the first 3, and they can live quite happy with this one. And Eika's Azir, something that is definitely very coveted, that I expect could end up seeing in his hands at some point. But I think LDLC, generally speaking, will look to pick up a very strong bottom lane very soon, as they will lock in the Azir.
I mean, locking the Wukong here as well is no bad thing, because it sets you up for a strong mid lane duo, allows you to go towards that top side as well. But as you mentioned, they want to get their bot lane in early, and it's going to be the Sivir that's locked.
Yeah, they played a lot of Sivir in the finals. As all right, here's where the shenanigans starts coming, I suppose. Looks like we're getting
the shenanigans full of
Sion plus Karthus. All right, so my expectation is that LDLC are probably gonna have to ban away Senna, unless we're actually gonna end up with Sion mid lane.
I think it's Sion mid, you know,
which is definitely a very big possibility. So we'll track how this draft goes for AGO Rogue, but for now, LDLC, they've just picked up the Titans of, we're taking the game to 30 minutes and we're gonna scale and outscale you. So LDLC, I think correct response, take away the Senna so there's no Senna plus Sion in the bottom lane. I wonder what else they look to remove away. What they be kind of remotely scared of here? Something like Seraphine from FLICKR could be an okay shout. Not really sure what else they would be happy to take away. But I think
you could look at the Zeri, maybe just get rid of those.
Just get rid of the Zeri. Like, if you're kind of afraid of ADCs in general, I think that's obviously the other good call. Just remove away that Zeri. I think the options are relatively open for LDLC in terms of what they actually do want to ban away, though. But AGO Rogue focusing on some of those stronger pairings with the Sivir. They already know that they're going to be dealing with a very strong front-to-back teamfight composition. So taking away the Renata and probably another Enchana, I'd have to imagine, though they're actually kind of all gone. Renata, Lulu.
Karma is the one that maybe
you could really dig down for Karma. I think at this point, maybe you'd be more happy to take away, you know, another follow-up engage, like perhaps the Norless, so that it's just off the table entirely. So there's not, you know, Ornn plus Norless with these very 2 consistent damage threats. That could also be a possibility. They take away DOS's Taric instead. Pretty cheeky call out, but I think that always leaves up the opportunity for this Rakan to slip through. And now you have the Ornn armor over the top. If it looks like it's going to find a couple of key targets, you can always just hit the kill switch, go in with the Rakan armor, and really start to nail in some of your damage. But what's AGO Rogue going to round out this composition with? Because, you know, we said weird stuff. Ivan Rengar, they like to do that kind of thing. Is it gonna be? Well, all right, we get our answer. It's Yasuo and this Alistar in the bottom side. Yasuo, Alistar. So Alistar obviously 1-to-1 has a really good matchup into Sivir, right? Because Sivir spell shield can only block the headbutt and not pulverize, so you still eat the CC. And obviously Yasuo can follow up off of that, but also just kind of offers a nice amount of disengage potentially into the Rakan as an answer in the mid game. But what it does also give them is consistent physical DPS, because obviously they have the Karthus. LDLC are gonna pick up the Bel'Veth for Yike. Now, point of note, Yike has played a fair amount of Bel'Veth. He played it to round out their series against BDSA, where of course they picked up a victory. So LDLC, very familiar with this champion. I think this is the first game in groups. No, it definitely showed its head in play-ins.
Yeah, it did, but I think it wasn't played yesterday.
I don't think it was played yesterday. So for the groups enjoyers, you will get to see your first Bel'Veth game. We'll see how it ends up doing, because I think there's obviously a lot of misconception around Bel'Veth. Obviously, a champion that scales so heavily, you'd expect to be quite an sort of early game farmer. Honestly, whenever I see Bel'Veth in competitive play, if it doesn't snowball, it feels like it's kind of not that good. So I'll see what Yike ends up getting up to in this early game, because it doesn't really have a, you know, wide variety of setup in the early game to actually look for these ganks in the lanes. And he's definitely not going to keep up with a Karthus in terms of farming pace. So let's see what exactly Yike gets up to there on the Bel'Veth pick. Very exciting drafts on both sides, though. We spoke a lot about that front to back from LDLC. Speak about AGO Rogue. I think, I'll just be real with you guys, we're just looking for explosive engages from promisq at Nite. Probably a strong top side 2v2 to look to play around as well. Nite's probably kind of just going to try and be a bit of a priority bot. Soak up loads of poke damage, but look for first move as frequently as he can. Try and assist Rabble on whatever play he is trying to make. But these fights will almost certainly be very, very explosive. With Rakan in the game, with that Ornn as well on the opposite side. Always looking for poking and prodding engages. See how things go. Let's run to the final game of the day.
Yes, we are. As we've got AGO Rogue on the blue side, LDLC on the red. First appearance for both of these two teams here at the Summer 2022 Amazon European Masters. Semi-finalists from last season. Of course, LDLC finalists last season. Came up against K-Corp, and you know what happens when teams do that at the finals of European Masters. It's not a pretty sight for fans of the other team. But AGO Rogue, I'm very, very happy they've gone for something a little bit quirky.
Yeah,
would be how I'd name this one, because we were actually talking to Solari, who covers the Ultra League in English, alongside Brillman, of course, on those broadcasts, and she was saying, look, not only do AGO Rogue now have to adapt in draft and kind of play around what the other team wants to be doing, they're quite happy to just adapt mid-game and change things up on the fly. And when they go for stuff that's a little bit stranger and has a couple of different options in terms of how they want to play it, it gives them that opportunity to say, well, plan A wasn't working, how do B, C, and D look?
Yeah, and that's a very, very powerful tool for a team to have. Not just, you know, having these kind of, you know, drafts that you won't see very frequently, but having the ability to kind of notice, okay, this isn't working, onto the next plan, or onto playing towards this engage instead. Just kind of means that AGO Rogue really good at just reading game states, right? Saying, all right, this condition is no longer something we can play towards, or it's not potentially as efficient as it was maybe 5 minutes ago. We need to start playing towards this as soon as possible to give us the best opportunity. A lot of the times you'll see teams, they're starting to struggle with, you know, if they've got a one-dimensional team comp, or like, you know, a team that only really does a couple of things, they'll kind of throw their head at the wall consistently and hope that it works. That kind of adaptation, something that you don't often see in many teams, especially not at the ERL level. So having that on AGO Rogue's arsenal, definitely a very useful skill.
I mean, the one thing that does scare me a little bit, and it's one of those things that's working as intended, but could be an issue, is that Rabble is the only AP source of damage really from this AGO Rogue side, right? On the Karthus, that's kind of how you want it, so that people can't itemize against you too effectively. But if Rabble starts struggling, then things could get pretty scary in terms of how easy it is to itemize against this roster.
Definitely will be. I think for AGO Rogue, though, they're always going to have, you know, those two consistent damage threats from FLICKR and Rabble. I think FLICKR may have a little bit of a hard time finding target access, and he's really going to have to rely on promisq to kind of get into the back line on top of Exakick and Eika to give him that last breath to close the gap. But at the very least, we'll always be able to hit, you know, the likes of Ragner and most likely Yike. So we'll see how he gets on, especially in the laning phase, falling a little bit far behind, as you would kind of expect from, you know, double melee into sort of range. Rakan, you know, his all attack range is a little bit larger than a melee champion. He's not quite a range champ, so, you know, kind of nitpick it short, but expect to see him fall behind in CS for now. But now they have level 3, maybe can look for a couple of engages here and there. Maybe once Rabble's actually around to capitalize.
Absolutely, and that's a double knock-up to help this one through, but promisq does need to be careful as he is ignited down, has to hold on to that stun, get some damage down onto Exakick, and Rabble is the first responder, which means that LDLC could be in trouble. LCKR looking to cut down, Exakick goes low, still alive, they haven't even turned onto him. Guys, Sivir, you need to go and do that. Team, Exakick won't be able to execute, you've got to imagine, and it's first blood going over the way of Rabble, but that was pretty messy, Rogue.
Yeah, but you know what, Will? They still got first blood, so does it really matter? And I just wanted both of those kills, or maybe to force out DOS' flash. And now Yike going to take this opportunity to try and slip into the Raptor camp. Oh, this DOS will be in trouble.
Probably okay, he's a little bit too quick to get onto tower. LCKR just puts through a couple of autos in a queue just to keep him low. Well, that's what we wanted to see from this bot lane. That's what you were mentioning. Go on the aggressive when you hit level 3. Allow yourself to actually do some fighting, because sitting back passively isn't necessarily going to work. But the headbutt's just been used by promisq, and Yike is en route, just floating on down, looking towards this Alistar. We'll be able to catch him in the outcome as he flashes forward away. But he's still alive as the flash forward comes through. promisq now, they have...
Oh my God!
Okay, no, the Boomerang will be able to secure the kill as Yike now moving forward, looking towards LCKR. Can he get him? No! As he survives, but Exakick will be able to secure the kill as he returns to lane. But Rabble looking for the Qs for Exakick. He's got his blue suede shoes on. He's gone dancing. Will he be able to get the kill? No, he won't. The Guardian keeps him alive as Rabble floats away. Here comes a trade. But no one's hit by Nite as he bundles down forward. It is only a 2-for-1, but finish your meals, people. Come on.
What just happened with the bot side? Oh, I love AGO Rogue, man. They are so fun. You know, LDLC domestically, normally they kind of just show up, do their thing, leave, right? They don't really do much elaborating. They kind of just win with whatever draft they tend to show up with. It feels like AGO Rogue have come in all guns blazing with this draft.
Yeah.
And saying, you know what? We're not going to play you at any kind of standard game. This flash is so funny. I mean, they definitely see him slip into the alcove.
What's promisq's plan? What's the plan here, lads?
It's not to live, I'll tell you that, but he still gets the double knockup. And that sets up for LCKR and Rabble to actually open up here onto Yike, who isn't able to actually find much damage. See, Exakick doesn't dodge out on the first couple of Qs, but then Rabble, we've all been there if you're a Karthus player, you know, you miss a couple, and unfortunately the Guardian proc comes in. Flash comes out, and then the train shows up, and it's just a brief moment of heart attackers. Speaking of heart attacks, we're back.
promisq gets the engage down onto DOS, looking for the damage. Nice knockup catching out onto promisq. Yike is chasing forward. Can he get the kill? Yes, he can, but isn't level 6, so can't reset just yet. Eika moving forward, looking for damage on the LCKR. He's going to slide on through. The damage is massive. It's a shutdown going the way of Rabble as well. These fights, it's crazy. It's 2 for 2.
It's just a 2 for 2. That could have gone so wrong for LDLC. All of that chain CC coming through. And Rabble has now just hit level 6 pretty early on in the game. Karthus is enjoying these team fights right now. 6 stacks on the Dark Seal. Lost chapter already. He is on his way to that fast Leandries. This is exactly what LDLC don't need, is a Karthus getting hyper-fed. I think the only positive thing to note really is that Exakick can always spell shield the ultimate. Smile, but I think the fact that LCKR's also been able to pick up a couple of kills for himself as well. The kills are kind of going where they need to the back pocket of the damage threats. We didn't actually get to see how this started up, and it looks like LDLC just wanted the red buff. The engage comes in from promisq. Nite's able to kind of play bodyguard-ish, but Eika stops that from happening. promisq gets chunked down, and this is a really nice decimating smash into 2 to 3 from LCKR. The Yasuo still Tempest. But again, it's just a 2 for 2. The crucial thing to know is that Rabble picks up an additional kill on a shutdown at that. Now he is absolutely fed out of his mind, and he's going to be approaching that Leandries very, very quickly. And LCKR also 2-2-2. Yes, dying in these plays, but still picking up the kills and the assists, much like Exakick is actually staying at parity right now. And the easy and lovely thing about having Yasuo bot is you don't really have to do any weird mental gymnastics. He builds ADC items, so You don't really have to be like, well, he's this far behind. He's not like an AP carry in the bottom side. You kind of gauge these strengths. That kind of, you know, hey, they're both AD carries, pretty much. Just that one has loads of dashes. And a sword. And a sword.
Which isn't necessarily what you want in your ranged character, but he's not ranged. I'm just sitting here looking at Rabble on the Karthus, just like rubbing my hands together, because you know what? Members of LDLC have been escaping team fights with about 100 hit points. And do you know what Karthus loves? It's people being at about 100 hit points. Yes, so those Requiems could do some work for both of those teams. Maybe as shocked as we are about the early game scrappiness and the early game speed have slowed things down for the past couple of minutes. LDLC have now made their way onto the first dragon of the game. Yike just looking to break down the Ocean Drake, and Rift Herald we saw just moments ago taken by Rabble for his team as well. The Leandries has now been secured by the Karthus, so that is going to be a big spike.
It's a dragon, and then powered form pickup by Yike. But observers, I kind of want to ask, can we get a look at the total gold in the game? Unless a fight breaks out, because Nite looks like he's about to get
I think a fight's about to break on. Yeah, Yike is going to get some damage onto Nite. Of course, Sion is pretty tanky. Rabble has zero interest and is just going to do his Raptors instead, which, honestly, fair enough.
Player. Yeah.
As Yike actually goes very, very low. He's on 300. I don't know if it's his Requiem angle.
I don't think it's enough, unfortunately. Plus, the heal was there from Exakick if it was absolutely necessary. But you know what could happen here? This could be a wave soak up from Rabble. Now it's not going to crash entirely. Is he going to get the cannon? +1. There you go. And he's even going to eat some of the wave. Giga Chad Rabble, man.
I was like, oh, who left this wave here? Oh, I'll get it. Don't worry, guys. As you see Sion like, yeah, thanks for the help in the last team fight, buddy.
Honestly,
he will stroll back.
Oh, okay, Lost should be fine. He's alright.
Oh, promisq.
He's good. Don't worry about it. What are you worried for?
You know, sometimes you just gotta not hit your Q. Sometimes you just gotta miss your skill shots.
Wait, no, he hit it. No, he hit it.
Did he?
Yeah.
He turned around though. It looked like it was the other direction.
It was just one of those weird animation things. It said over Doss's head that he was airborne, but obviously he didn't go up in the air.
He didn't look very airborne, is all I'm saying. But now I take it back then. promisq, great combo. Good job. As we do hit the 11-minute mark, things slowed down significantly off the back of the early game, which I'm pretty thankful for. Honestly, it lets us kind of address the situation and look at how these two teams are hanging around. Reminded that there is a top lane in this game. Ragner and Sinmivak have been chilling, I think is the best way to describe it. The Renekton having a slightly better time, which you do expect.
Is like every solo queue top lane game where the top laners kind of just handshake each other and go, so we coin tossing which of our teams is just gonna, you know, win or lose? Yes. And then they just fight each other in the top side. Sinmivak, as expected, getting the better end of the matchup. Renekton into a lot of these tanks. Just has a really easy time, can't be bullied out. Blade of the Ruined King just means that once he's on this spike, you always have to be worried about the empowered W proc. You immediately get the active out of the Blade of the Ruined King, and just in general, 3 Blade of the Ruined King procs in such a short amount of time often means that he's one-shotting a lot of the squishier targets, heavily chunking out the tanks. Now, Rift Herald, it was picked up, and subsequently it's going to be put down here.
Ragner looks for a knockup onto Rabble. We'll be able to find it. Members are coming up from both teams. promisq arrives, so does Eika looking for the damage on the Karthus. He flashed away, burning low, but still alive as Yike on the side will be able to stop the tower from falling as he solos out the Rift Herald on the charge. Ragner and Sinmivak, though, they're thinking about going for another scrap. But everyone else has left. They're not interested in the top lane. Actually, Yike's going to stop his recall and move back towards the top lane, so we could see the Crocodile in a bit of trouble if he decides to overextend, but he's got a way to clear up.
He does. Oh, that's a red buff on FLICKR, by the way.
Oh, Exakick on the hunt, but is exhausted. The knockup would be massive. Nice spell shield, but it goes directly through. There comes the ultimate, the Requiem, but it doesn't do too much to anyone across the line. And LDLC will be able to just back away without losing a member.
Yeah, for now, FLICKR really is fancying his chances there. Gets the heal and the ultimate out of Doss. Not too bad, but Rabble did exchange that Requiem. On the top side of the map, however, spoke about how Sinmivak had kind of just been silently winning this lane.
Ragner,
I think, looked quite quirky, but Sinmivak probably would have been able to have followed up on it either way, but still gets Ragnar's flash, so tangible results either way. Not too bad. Yeah, Sinmivak picks up that whole tower with the plates. Already had the Blade of the Ruined King. Now we'll be fast tracking towards that Frozen Fist. Really, really strong up on the top side. A lot of core items being completed now for AGO Rogue across the board. First item's already in as well on the opposite side for LDLC. It's just really Ragnar waiting to hit that mythic point. Everyone on the AGO Rogue there. Of course, Blade the Ring King. Not a mythic, but it might as well be one, given how strong it is.
I'm just waiting for something to kick off, because it does have the feeling of both these teams ran into each other early game just to test what was going on, see what was happening. But now AGO Rogue have found themselves a decent gold lead, 2,500 to the good, and as you mentioned, have all but their support picked up their first major item, Mythic or Blade of the Ruined King, if you're a Crocodile. And do they want to now start searching for fights? Are they in a position where they want to start putting their foot to the pedal once again?
Yeah, one item definitely not too bad. I think what you really have to think about is that LDLC will get stronger as the game progresses with these item spikes. Azir, Sivir, Bel'Veth, infinitely scaling. So the sooner that you can look for engaging in fights, probably the better. You obviously have very strong scaling in your own right, but you just don't want to give LDLC more agency and time to scale up to a point where they get to pick and choose when they go in, when they look for these 5v5s. So I think AGO Rogue probably going to start looking to fish for some engages relatively soon. But again, the options of engage are really limited. And you know what? I'm kind of turning myself into the cloud salesman. You've had three souls today.
You've been chatting to the observers, haven't you? Because as we all know, if you're not in on this reference, observers choose which dragons are.
Yeah,
that's just how it works.
Just how it works. Yeah.
It's not an algorithm, it's the observers for competitive. It's different on TR to live, don't worry about it. But it's all been clouds as we got a little bit of fun in the bot side. Exakick needs to be careful, but will be able to back away under his tower, and Yasuo doesn't want to follow. LDLC on the back foot at the moment.
And he even pops the ultimate to run away a little bit faster. AGO Rogue, FLICKR in particular, 1v1, just winning out as you'd expect. Yasuo into an AD carry. We'll just take that tower for free by himself. Not too shabby. I think AGO Rogue now are just going to look to try and start to collapse towards the mid lane if I had to wager a guess. If you can break that mid lane tower when you have so much wave clear to deal with limited options of engage and siege, you're really winning out quite hard as Yike wins out on that smite battle. Picks up the blue buff, and that tower is collected, and they are fighting over these jungle camps right now. DOS is going to be forced out, and it seems like AGO Rogue will take their prize of a grump and likely just back away. LDLC, though, like you said, kind of on the back foot, but again, they have the scaling aspect in their favor. They're always going to have these consistent damage threats and options for engage. It's just about how they're actually able to use them and whether or not AGO Rogue are able to push, you know, the boundaries of what kind of engages they can find, considering how limited their engage options are in comparison to LDLC.
Absolutely, and Yike, of course, does still have the Rift Herald Eye that he can look to blow and get some damage with. And if you're a team that scales and choo-choo up to the top side for Nite, then getting a couple of these towers down earlier and speeding that process up just a little bit can be exceptionally useful. So keep your eyes peeled on where that one's going to drop. It is second Herald, of course, so not going to be getting those additional gold plates that you can confirm with the first one. But it's still going to be very, very useful to break over stuff like the mid lane tower, which is pretty healthy at the moment.
It definitely is. And with the Herald on the side of LDLC, like you said, it's going to be kind of hard to brick this one. Let's see how AGO Rogue go about it. Limited forms of engage again. Not the longest range composition either. It's not like they have poke options. Maybe to deal with some of the wave clear that will be omnipresent here for LDLC. And LDLC, they're the kind of team that will just play slowly if they have to, or they can just get engaged on.
No, Rogue aren't interested in playing this one slowly as they dive on board, but Yike is here, empowered to the nines as teleports come on through. LDLC disengage. All the falls got blocked by FLICKR. Windwall denying that one. LDLC, they pull out all the stops, and they do manage to stop Rogue for now.
They didn't really hit on that point too much. The fact that Yasuo is in this game against the Ornn can always windwall the Ornn ultimate. So imagine if that windwall wasn't there, the re-engage could have definitely been on for LDLC, and the chase down could have ensued. FLICKR just does a good job of holding that one. I think that's going to be a very important cooldown to track, actually, because outside of that Ornn ultimate, doesn't really have to spell shield too much besides the Sivir. So I think he's likely going to be holding on to that windwall every single time he knows that Ragnar could be looking for something here. Speaking of top laners,
damage coming through. Nite goes over the wall, but can he escape? Can he survive? He has got passive, so will be involved. as Sinmivak runs on through, looking for Eika as the target, have deleted him, and now turning towards Yike, who's going on through. DOS is there as well. AGO Rogue are coming. The first one there is going to be FLICKR, looking towards DOS and Yike. Can't find the damage onto the Rakan, but it's really bigger fish that he is hunting that can't find Yike this time around. DOS jumps out as well, and LDLC pretty criminally will be able to get away from this one. promisq driving on forward to stop the re-engage from achieving too much. And FLICKR decides not to pull the trigger on the ultimate.
Not sure whether to say FLICKR was pretty unlucky on those Qs or that was just really fancy feet from LDLC. Either way, the end result is the same. They walk away with what feels like a bit of a heist, to be honest with you. Nite will return back out onto the map on the bottom side via a teleport. And this Cloud Dragon now spawns in 40 seconds. I think we start to track a lot of the IM completions again, where these champions are at in overall strength. Ragner, despite falling quite far behind, actually has 2 items completed because they're significantly cheaper than Sinmivak's. Also had the 3 boots to work with, and this Herald will charge into the mid lane and briefly give LDLC first move from the mid lane. You'd have to imagine by 15 seconds left on the Dragon Spawn up. That might not actually amount to too much, as
well, they're extended here. The Hunter's being called and members of LDLC collapse on through. Simple as that for Exakick.
Yeah, pretty over-aggressive there from FLICKR, like you say, very simple for Exakick to just pull the trigger on the Ulma and bring everybody else in. Now that tower will drop. It's quite low, but I think with the numbers disadvantage, they should still be able to play this one out. However, I think the key thing to know is that both Ulmas from DOS and Exakick burn, so they're just looking for a play on the top side.
Sinmivak gonna be called out as well. Pops the Dominus, but it doesn't matter, as it'll be an easy secure for Yike.
Yeah, really good stuff from LDLC. I think they recognize they can't contest the bottom side because Exakick gets chunked out, so they just go towards the top side of the map. Cloud Dragon, you know, one Cloud Dragon giving out at the end of the well. But it doesn't even look like they're going to give it up, because if you pan down to that dragon as this tower falls to Eika, actually picking that one up, but now the re-engage comes.
Oh, it's a 2v2. promisq stops in his track, still has the pulverize available as Nite. Bit too slow to chase up and probably doesn't want to without the damage in tow. LDLC get away with it once again. The dragon was actually stopped, so no one's secured that one. But Jamada, you know what? I'll be pretty lenient on you today.
Oh yeah.
We've already had Ornn in this game. We haven't played our favorite game. Name the ornament. Jamada, what's the ornament called? Oh, you're gonna be saved for a second. His Exakick may well be in trouble, dancing away, but can't escape. The damage comes from FLICKR, and he will be able to kill the kill. But DOS now looking to try and get some damage down. Here comes Yike. He doesn't survive, as now he's looking towards promisq. It looks like Bel'Veth might be able to take down the cow. Will be able to for the double. The resets are there. And it's all about LDLC. It feels like momentum has swung.
It really does. I mean, AGO Rogue just getting a little bit too over-eager. Specifically, honestly, it's just lucky Exakick. He really wants these solo kills. I mean, technically, it does take him down, but his life sacrificed alongside promisq's means that LDLC will pick up this dragon. But both these teams miles away from Assault. It's not going to be in the equation for at least another 10 minutes at the earliest. But gold swing, momentum swing, back over to LDLC. And again, the more standard composition, the ones that we're always going to understand how they function, what they do. The knock-up just lands. Simple as that. Doesn't get spell shielded. Exakick spell shield some of the damage after the fact. Able to flash away from the Q. Nite does follow. And I think DOS helps out with the Guardian proc with his E. But also, it looked like he might have cancelled an auto attack with his W, hard to tell. promisq follows his ADC to the grave, and will unfortunately fall, as of course, the resolving play was that dragon.
Yeah, that's all very interesting, but what's the item called?
The what?
The Ornn. This fight's not going anywhere, we got time.
No, it looks like it's going somewhere, to be honest.
No, it's cool. What's the item called?
It's like, it starts with an R.
You should actually know this one.
It starts with an R.
Ornn always builds this one.
Yeah, it starts with an R. Okay,
it's
like grasp, something grasp, like something forge grasp. That's all I'm giving. All right. By the way, Sinmivak. All right, he's not going to chase me.
No, they're chilling. They want to know too. What's it called? I actually know the answer to all of the items on the list, so this is fine for me.
This is Rhyme Forge Grasp.
Yeah, it is! Clap and shout for Jamada.
I'm such a nerd.
It's only taken like a year and a half of casting with me to learn the name of literally one item. If you've got a tournament that needs a caster, make sure to @Jamada casts.
It's not even my handle.
I don't know what your handle is. I don't look at your Twitter. Don't be stupid. Fortunately, we'll check back in when more ornaments are built, so don't you worry. There's plenty of time left in this game. And it does feel like there's plenty of time because LDLC were behind. They've got the tempo and the stabilization, but this composition doesn't necessarily win super quickly.
No, it doesn't. I think key thing to know as well is that AGO Rogue are actually on a pretty heavy spike here. They've got 2 items across the board. AGO Rogue champions, right now, in theory, they can find their very, very slim condition team fight, should be winning out on LDLC. I think Eika and Exakick need at least another item before they can really match and output what AGO Rogue will be putting on the table. So this could be a window, but again, it feels like AGO Rogue have been looking for that window. It's even at times been open, but unfortunately, right underneath the entrance to the window, it's just the death pit that LDLC keeps luring AGO Rogue into.
Which is maybe Rogue being aggressive. They backed off a little bit because they fall into this pit of despair, which does mean that LDLC pick up the win. And it's one hand quite smart to pull back and say, like, right, FLICKR especially, stop your nonsense. We're going to play this game out. We've got some tools that go to the late game. Unfortunately, LDLC are pretty happy with that state of affairs, you've got to imagine. So for AGO Rogue, do they have to find this perfect happy medium?
Yeah, I think so. Just try and get promisq onto the back line. It feels like we haven't really seen him get on top of Exakick or Eika in the mid game. And once they actually find an engage, it should be alright, but just haven't been able to. FLICKR has that Infinity Edge now as well. It's not a Blaze During King rush, which of course gives you a very strong one item, but kind of delays that like Infinity Edge spike, which you often obviously have with Yasuo and Yone. 2 items in. He is super strong and only going to get tough to take down. In a while. This is being snuck away. It's being pinged out though, so I think Rogue have an idea it's going on, but how fast will this one burn down? Look at the health bar, 4,000, 3,000 already. So
quick, the members of Rogue are here. There's the Sun. Keep your eyes on the Baron. It's secured by LDLC. Yike grabs that one, and the empowered ultimate reset that we see, of course. Sinmivak on the side, looking for Eika. The assassination can find it, but is now in trouble. Here comes Yike, the rest of LDLC here as well, as Nite does manage to get the knock-up. Won't be able to provide too much more assistance, but Rabble floating through on the other side of the fight. We're checking in on Exakick, who's caught out by FLICKR. There's damage, there's exhaust, but it looks like Sivir will be able to kite away, moving forward, but will be able to grab the double. promisq in shambles. The ultimate from Rabble doesn't achieve too much, as Nite now will also fall. We'll be able to take Yike with him though, as Ragner and Doss, the 2 survivors of the play, but they do survive with Baron Bomb. Actually, that's a lie. Exakick's alive too.
It's all coming up for LDLC right now. AGO Rogue get the Baron snuck away from them, and they lose the subsequent fight because it's on about 3 different fronts, unfortunately. And FLICKR isn't able to find the last breath target, found multiple knockups, but not onto the target he wants, Exakick. Unfortunately for them now, LDLC have the Baron, they're going to push into the base, crack it open. They'll take an inhib for now. Looks like they'll retreat back towards the dragon, pick that one up, and look to reset back out onto the map with 1.5 minutes left on this Baron.
A little work being done by Exakick in that fight, of course. Excellent kiting away for him. Has now picked up his 3rd item, if you discount boots, and LDLC will also be looking to pick up that Dragon Soul. But more importantly, Jamada, what's the ornament called?
Wormfall and Sacrifice.
Yeah, there we go. Simple as.
That one's quite easy.
One of the most built. Yeah, that's, you know, I'm looking forward to if they get to Doss, because I know you don't know that one. As we will have another look at that fight, and as you mentioned, 4 different fronts.
Yeah, you know, you've got the fight kind of going on in the pit initially. You've got the fight on the top side where Sinmivak does eventually take down Eika, but he gets collapsed on very quickly. Nite, the Giga Chad Nite, just says, you know what, I'm going to flash over the wall and try and help my top laner, but he's already dead to rights. Rabble doesn't have enough damage to follow up.
Though, as they called out Yike, he goes low, will go down, eventually cut down by Sinmivak. What looked like a team fight has just turned into a pick though, as AGO Rogue can't press forward.
Yeah, and that's kind of big. I think taking down Yike could potentially stymie some of the power that LDLC could have had in the siege, but I think still willing to move forward. They've got Eika in the mid lane. They could bring him down to the mid lane, to the bottom side, excuse me, but looks like He just wants to farm it up. promisq
has to go golden, but I don't think he survives very much longer after that one, as Sivir doing so much damage. Here comes the Requiem, but it's not going to do too much. Spell shielded by Sivir, tanked by everyone else, and this should be the inner tower falling as Rogue back away.
Yeah, I mean, pick good, but unfortunately for Rogue, still too much power in LDLC. promisq gets chunked out too quickly to actually look for an engage. No one from AGO Rogue, FLICKR or Rabble actually able to lay in meaningful damage, and that's always kind of been the way, right? Sure, you can always get the Requiem down. Sure, you're going to hit everybody but Exakick most times than not, but it's also about the target access for FLICKR, and he's just not really been able to have it in the team fights enough to a point where it's actually a cause of concern for LDLC. Time and time again, just winning out with this, you know, safe, stronger scaling team composition. It's what we expected. AGO Rogue had a lot to work with out of that early game. They had a very strong Karthus. A lot of that started to fall to the wayside. Now LDLC have their time to play.
And time on their side. I think that they'll be feeling as they move towards Rabble. They move towards Karthus. Nite is there as well, but he's going to stumble away, as it's just going to be simple as that. Jungler takes down Jungler, as it's another kill for Yike.
Another kill for Yike. It's Bel'Veth. It's really strong. He's going to pick up his form on the back end. And actually, how many? He's got 87 stats. I don't know what's good for Bel'Veth stats, so I'm not going to comment on whether or not
good.
It's, you know, good or bad. But he has, what is that, 2.98 attack speed. So I'm just going to say it's good. And continue on, like LDLC will with this siege in the top side. And I think AGO Rogue probably slowly bleed the way here. They have to just try and find an engage, give FLICKR backline access. Otherwise, I think LDLC are just going to close out this one cleanly.
Sinmivak on the side is pressing down in that bot lane, keeping some pressure on, as AGO Rogue not going to be able to stop ports, because that would lose them the game if they attempt to do that at this stage into all 5 members, but it's just going to be losing out a couple of inhibs for that top inner. It is also an objective bounty, but for AGO Rogue, has the window of opportunity passed?
I mean, I think it's tough to say. It's very easy to just be like, yes, but this is also one of those kind of compositions where all it takes is promisq to, like, you know, do an Alistar thing where he just knocks up everybody on the team and it gets followed up by a last breath. So I will hold my breath on AGO Rogue actually finding an engage, but it feels like LDLC have just done such a good job at denying this combination from ever happening. As we kind of expect from them as the first team for LFL. It's like the most winningest team. I keep on saying this phrase, the most winning team.
Winningy. That's not right. Like,
it can't be, but
that works.
Point is, they win a lot. They don't really know what it's like to lose too frequently in this lineup. And,
well, except European Masters Spring Finals. Am I right, K-Got fans?
I miss the K-Got. Yeah, so do I, man. I miss the banner that I had with them. I wonder, like, what do you reckon the mischief? It was great, though.
No. Do you know what? You're putting it off. What's the Rakan's ornament called?
It's
That's not a word. Just for heads up, for those of you who don't watch that much League of Legends and just tune in for European Masters, this dude has cast LEC and LPL this split and doesn't know the name of this item.
Yeah, by the way, Baron's going down. It's dead.
Yeah, I know. Nite has actually gone in for it. It will be secured as LDLC. You've got to imagine they take his fight, but FLICKR dancing around his wind wall. A lot of damage going to come through from the wet ground, but it is spell shoot. Exakick actually runs down, so we just take a decent amount of damage, but so does the AGO Rogue line of LDLC are ripping them to shreds. Exakick untouched as Sinmivak, last man standing. Rabble actually floats down mid lane to escape as well. I don't know if the Crocodile will be able to do the same as Yike. Smites for the slow, knocks up for the damage, and Ragner helps with the kill. It should be simple as that teleport comes through to the mid lane. LDLC once again take down AGO Rogue.
Yep, the semi-final rematch is going to end exactly how it started, with LDLC taking down AGO Rogue. Keep their clean record against them this year. They will go 1-0 up in the group to end out the day. AGO Rogue, you have to credit them for coming out with a spicy draft yet again. Unfortunately, after the early game, it felt like LDLC just had all of the standard tools to close this one out. They had the massive range advantage, they had the wave clear. There was no real hard force engage tools from the side of AGO Rogue to actually force the issue with this Yasuo that they had that was very, very strong, and for Rabble as well to follow up on some of that with his damage from the Requiem or just outright Qs. And unfortunately, it just turned into a game where LDLC said, oh, you can't actually fight us because we have towers, and that's about it. We'll just sit here and scale. It felt like they couldn't keep the game bloody and messy like they did in the early game to actually utilize their team composition, and LDLC just outscaled them.
And sometimes the games just happen like that, right? As you mentioned, AGO Rogue definitely capable of pushing forward and starting things up. And in the early game, they built themselves the lead, but LDLC had the composition that ultimately was stronger. And they played the game slightly better across the entire length of it. And do you know what? We're going to have an interview as well. Dos is going to be joining us on the bottom of the screen to talk us through that victory once again over AGO Rogue. Dos, massive congratulations on the result. How confident are you guys feeling after that first win here at the Amazon European Masters Summer 2022?
I mean, I think actually every time you start like a new tournament, you're not like too confident in the beginning. You need to like kind of get a feel of how everyone is playing, and obviously meta is different in every region kind of, so need to get like a bit of a feeling. I think this game was a bit shaky in the early game because they played like a lot of champions that we haven't played against all season actually, so yeah, a bit shaky start, but I think the more games you play, the more confident we'll get.
Yeah, and momentum, very important, of course. I think you guys as a whole have been on a roll this year. You've only not finished first last EU Master Spring. And I want to ask you about that with K-Corp gone and generally the perceived strength of the LFL, and obviously yourselves as kind of the, well, you're the champions, is how it works. How are you feeling about, you know, the tournament as a whole, right? Because most people will put LDLC down as the favorites. The only team to have actually taken you down in a best of 5 and international tournament, not here. How do you feel your chances actually are?
I mean, I think last year's EU Masters, we actually had like the upper hand as well, I would say. Like, I expected to win that one, honestly. I still think if we like played better on the day, then we would have won. And I think on the same, like this EU Masters is like probably ours, but it's like too early to say, obviously, because I also think that it's not always the better team that wins, honestly. Like, you can have like a bad day, or you can get surprised in draft or something, or whatever, you know. It's like you can lose 3 games in a row and then you're out, obviously. So I'm not sure, like, we take it one game at a time.
That's really interesting to hear, of course, having that slightly more reserved aspect of saying, yeah, we're good. We're going to definitely put a run on this one, but not necessarily going to be going guns blazing. We're going to win everything, rah, rah, rah. It's very interesting, though, in this group that you found yourselves in, because, of course, AGO Rogue you took out in that semi-final. X7 Esports also disposed of them in the knockout stages as well. Does that give a slight advantage to you as a team, knowing that you've already got history with this group of players in taking down these opponents?
I think not really, honestly. Like, I think, honestly, I think just LFL is like a lot better than other regions. Like, even Spanish League, German League is like not too much competition in those teams. So I think if you just play like we normally do, then there's not really an issue too much with these teams. It doesn't really matter too much who we play against.
Awesome. And I'm going to annoy our producers because they said that was the last question, but I do have one more, just because, you know, I've got to give some love to my friend Ragner up in the top side. Dos, you were given an Ornn upgrade at the end of that game. Do you know what it's called?
You shouldn't ask me these questions. I have no clue.
Well, Dos, it's always an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Massive congratulations on the strong performance. And
thank you, man.
In the group stages.
Thank you.
Reliquary of the golden people. Do you know what? I reckon Dos is never going to forget that, though.
I don't think he cares.
Narrative. Do you know what? Let's have a look back at this game before I firmly get myself kicked off the... I'm meant to be casting tomorrow. Who knows if that's happening now. AGO Rogue, things looked messy early, but they seemed to be favoured, but things just slowly got away from them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they just had loads of opportunities, right, to kind of further their lead in moments like these, but they kind of just overstepped the mark, right? FLICKR stepping too far forward, DOS able to keep Exakick alive for a brief moment to actually allow more members to close in from the LDLC side. And it felt like definitely we saw maybe FLICKR overextend 1 or 2 times when he perhaps shouldn't have, looking for those solo kills onto Exakick. And this was just a really clever Baron from LDLC, and from this point on, it felt like the momentum was fully swung into the French side's favor. And unfortunately, like we kind of hit on, right? Not a lot of range, not a lot of range of engage as well. And there was just so much consistent wave clear, so much consistent scaling on the side of LDLC, which meant that if AGO Rogue weren't able to, you know, really push their lead hard and fast, unfortunately, this always felt like the, you know, expected outcome, that the Sivir Azir Bel'Veth will just outscale you. And you can kind of see it in the damage charts a little bit.
That's unfortunate for AGO Rogue, but of course LDLC look like such a strong team. A lot of people pegging them as favorites in this tournament, especially with K-Corp being absent this time around, and they came out to show exactly why people think they're so good. LFL, DOS was saying, they just feel better than everyone else, and honestly, looking at the way that the game day has been as a whole as we move into these replays, it has felt like that, but there was you know, Game Ward up against Matchco. It was a hard-fought game, but there was only ever going to be one winner, really. Yeah,
it really did feel like that. To me, Matchco not able to really push through the top side of the map. When you have like Wukong Sejuani, this combination, you can really shut down the top side pick, like Aatrox, for example, but felt like, to me, it was just Game Ward that were always first to the move, always making the proactive picks that they wanted to, and it was never really Matchco that had a proactive in anywhere. And unfortunately, Game Ward, the LFL proud, all the LFL teams, I think they picked up a victory. Of course, as we'll see as we go through the B-roll here, Heretics, of course, kind of nonchalantly swatting aside Valiance by the end of this one.
Absolutely. Got to give a shout out to Arcane Teddy, as always, representing his first European Masters. He's come through the UK scene quite a lot, so we've had a lot of time with this guy, but not strong enough to stand up to Heretics with his team this time around. And Heretics set up for a very, very exciting matchup up against BDS Academy at the top of that group. But then we've got the NLC up against the Prime League. Big derby matchup, and it was Dusty from Iceland and a very, very unfair looking Mordekaiser that took this game.
This was just a monster Mordekaiser angle. I always was kind of hoping that Curb domestically would pull this pick out, and I'm glad that he decided to. They actually had a brief word with him, and it felt like Dusty were maybe considering not doing it, but Curb was very insistent, and that insistence definitely paid off as this game from X7 as well. Really, really strong from them. And Orthsis definitely had something to say in this game, but honestly, once X7 had a grip of it, there was never really any letting go. And unfortunately, for the GLL side, they'll pick up a loss here. This was the game that opened up Group B, of course. Very close fight in this one, but it was always going to be X7 that it felt like came out on top.
And that left NLC undefeated off the back of today's games. But in this 5th game, BDS Academy, once again, amazing show from the LFL representatives, taking down the Prime League, SK Gaming Prime. And this game, very, very, I won't say easy for BDSA, but it seemed pretty routine.
Yeah, definitely did, as, you know, with that loss on the side of SK Prime, now 0-2, they really need to pick up a win if they're going to hope to find any kind of, you know, well, hope, actually, in making it into the top 2. Speaking of being 0-2, here are the standings for today.
Yeah, it looks very good for LFL. Vitality B, the old ones out there, having taken the loss today. Ultraliga, currently without their first win as a region. Things looking shiny for NLC as well. 3-0 as a collective, but these groups, it's early days. Let's not draw too many lines in the sand here. C and D, obviously it's going to be a bit harder for the teams on the bottom than the teams at the top, but there's plenty of League of Legends still to be played.
Yeah, definitely so. Dusty still needs to play Game Ward. Schalke still needs to play Matchco in that Group D, and obviously the same thing for Group C as well. Those teams that are 0-2 need to play each other still. The teams that are 2-0 need to play each other. So a lot will be decided in their next matchups, and that will kind of set us up, of course, for our second round robin next week. But that's next week, of course. We still have more games to go.
Absolutely. Not today, though, but we do have one play to go. It's the 1+ play of the day. Jamal, there's a couple of ones that we watched which might have got a shout, and you know what's coming from that last game?
It's going to be the Baron pickup, and honestly, yeah, I like this play. This was pretty good. It's just more or less about LDLC sneaking away this one for free. That will knock up from the Ornn. Really, really nice T-Tools in the chat for that. And LDLC were never really in a position to lose this team fight at all. AGO Rogue, again, we have to commend them, right? I think for coming out, all guns blazing, swinging to the walls with a draft like this. Yasuo Karthus. But LDLC, they play things by the book this time around, and they are not caught off guard, probably expecting some shenanigans after their semi-finals battle, of course.
Of course, but let's have a look at the schedule, because as you mentioned, there are more games to play tomorrow, and this is what we're going to be looking at. Matchco up against Schalke to kick us off at 5 PM. Zero Tedasti, Vitality B, Anofoses, Famagusta up against AGO Rogue, Game Ward, Dusty, LDLC X7 Esports.
Oh my
Maybe
Lord.
the match of the day, but I'm looking at the last one. Unicorns to Love up against Giants as well. There's a lot of big action tomorrow.
I mean, loads of important matchups at the very start of the day, right? Matchco, Schalke, of course, really important for that group. But look at those last 3 games, man. Unicorns, Giants to round things out. Dusty, Game Ward, both 2-0. That is a stacked schedule. And I cannot wait to see how things turn out. Very important matches across the board, but also very hype matches in general.
I'm going to make it like some of these teams today, and I'm going to quickly run next so that we can get to those matches a little bit faster. That is all we've got time for here at the Amazon European Masters for today. So for myself, Viper, Jamada, Bulldog and Duckling, who started out the day, and everyone behind the scenes, thank you so much for watching. Same time, same place tomorrow.